My name is Nia Johnson. My grandmother, Elara James, was my whole world. She raised me after my parents died. She was strong, smart, and built a successful flower shop business from nothing. 2 weeks ago, she passed away peacefully in her sleep. Broke my heart. Yesterday, I sat in her lawyer's office and learned she had left me everything. Her house, her business, her savings. It was a lot. More than I ever expected. Last night, I thought I was sharing my grief with my husband, Marcus. We were in our living room. I was crying. He held me and said all the right things. She loved you so much, baby. She wanted you to be taken care of. Then he kissed my forehead and said he was going to get us some ice cream, my favorite comfort food. My phone was charging on the coffee table. He forgot his phone next to it. When his phone buzzed with a text, I glanced at it. The screen lit up. The message preview was from someone named Leo. It read, "So it's all confirmed. The old lady's money is finally coming through. You hit the jackpot, man." My blood went cold. I didn't touch his phone. I just stared at those words glowing in the darkroom. Hit the jackpot. Marcus and I had been married for just over a year. We met at a charity run. He was charming, handsome, and paid attention to me in a way no one else did. He remembered my favorite coffee order, my favorite song, the story of how my grandmother raised me. He said he loved how close I was to her. He called it beautiful. 6 months after we met, he proposed. Felt like a fairy tale. My grandmother liked him, but she was always watchful. "He moves fast, Nia," she'd said gently. "Just make sure you know the speed limit." I thought she was just being protective. Now, sitting alone with that text on his screen, her words echoed in my head. The phone buzzed again. Another preview from Leo. "All that patience is paying off. Told you she was worth the wait." I felt like I was going to be sick. Marcus came back 10 minutes later with 2 pints of ice cream. He was smiling. "Cookie dough for my girl." He didn't notice anything wrong with me. I had wiped my face and was sitting quietly. He picked up his phone, read the messages, and his smile didn't fade. He just typed a quick reply and put the phone away. "Everything okay?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Just work stuff, baby. Nothing for you to worry about," he said, handing me a spoon. Took it. The ice cream tasted like dust. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay beside Marcus, listening to him breathe, and my mind raced. I thought about our wedding. He had insisted on a prenuptial agreement. He said it was the smart, modern thing to do to protect both of us. I had nothing but my teacher's salary, so I agreed. My grandmother's lawyer had reviewed it and said it was standard. It said what was mine before marriage stayed mine. But my grandmother was still alive then. Her money wasn't mine yet. Did the prenup protect an inheritance? I didn't know. Felt stupid and naive. The next morning Marcus was extra sweet. He made me pancakes. "You've been through so much, Nia. I want to take care of everything. Why don't you let me handle all the paperwork with the lawyer? You shouldn't have to deal with that stress right now." There it was. The first move. He wanted to handle it. "That's okay," I said, forcing a smile. "My grandmother's lawyer, Mr. Walsh, is like family. I want to do it myself. It feels respectful." He looked disappointed but covered it quickly. "Of course, baby. Whatever you need." I called Mr. Walsh's office as soon as Marcus left for work. I didn't mention the texts. I just asked one question. "Mr. Walsh, in my prenup with Marcus, does it protect an inheritance I receive after we're married?" There was a pause on the line. "Nia, the prenup states that assets acquired before marriage remain separate. An inheritance received during the marriage is generally considered separate property as well. But it can get complicated, especially if the funds are mixed together in joint accounts." "Why do you ask?" "Just thinking ahead," I said, trying to sound calm. "If I wanted to be absolutely sure something that was mine stayed mine, what would I do? You would keep it in accounts solely in your name. And you would have a very clear will. A will is the final instruction. It overrides a lot of other claims." "A will." My grandmother's will had just changed my life. I didn't have one. If something happened to me, everything would go to my next of kin. My husband. A plan started to form in my mind. It was a dangerous, scary plan. I needed proof. I needed to know for sure what Marcus was after. I began to pay closer attention. I noticed new things. Marcus talking about early retirement, about traveling the world, about buying a boat. "With your inheritance, we could really live, Nia," he said one night, rubbing my feet. Sounded like a dream, but now it sounded like a script. I checked our shared computer history when he was out. I found searches from months ago: Elara James net worth, flower shop business valuation, inheritance law state guidelines. The most damning one was from a week before my grandmother died. How long after death is inheritance distributed? He had been waiting for her to die. He had been counting the days. I needed to see his phone. I waited until he was in the shower. His password was his birthday. I felt sick as I opened his messages with Leo. The conversation was a horror story. It went back over a year to before our wedding. Leo ***, are you sure about this girl? She's a teacher. Not exactly rolling in cash. Marcus ***, her grandma is. The flower shop empire. The old lady won't live forever. Nia's her only family. It's a sure thing. Just have to play the long game. Leo ***, the long game. Marriage. That's extreme, man. Marcus ***, it's the safest bet. Once we're married and the old lady passes, half of everything could be mine. Maybe all of it if I play my cards right. Is off. She trusts me. I scrolled, my hands shaking. Messages about our wedding, mocking my heartfelt vows. Messages after my grandmother's funeral, celebrating. The final message from last night. Leo ***, so it's all confirmed. Marcus ***, meeting with the lawyer next week. Almost time to cash in. I took photos of everything with my own phone. Then I put his phone back exactly as I found it. I drove to my grandmother's empty house. I needed to think where he couldn't find me. I sat in her quiet kitchen, at the table where she taught me to bake, and I cried. I cried for her, for me, for the love I thought I had. Then I got angry. A deep, cold anger that dried my tears. Marcus thought I was soft. He thought he had won. He was already spending my grandmother's money in his head. "No," I said to the empty room. My voice sounded like hers. "Strong. Not while I'm breathing." I called Mr. Walsh. "I need to make a will. Immediately. And I need to move all the inheritance assets into new accounts, in my name only. Can you help me do this without anyone knowing?" "Nia, are you in some kind of danger?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "Not physical danger," I said. "Financial danger. And I need to move fast." Mr. Walsh became my ally. He set up a meeting for the next day during my lunch break. Marcus thought I was at a teacher's workshop. In the lawyer's office, I showed him the photos of the text messages. His face grew stern. "This is fraud. This is predatory. We need to get your affairs in order. And then we need to discuss legal action. First, we created a new will. I left everything to my grandmother's favorite charities. A community garden project, a scholarship for single mothers, and the local animal shelter. Marcus was not mentioned. Not $1. Next, we set up the new bank and investment accounts. Mr. Walsh helped me transfer every penny from my grandmother's estate into them. The process would take a few days, but it was started. "He may notice when large transfers happen," Mr. Walsh warned. "Let him notice," I said. "By then it will be too late." That evening, Marcus was buzzing with excitement. "So, when do we sit down with the lawyer and go over the details? We should plan our future, Nia." "Soon," I said, stirring a pot of soup. "Mr. Walsh is gathering all the final documents. He said by the end of the week." "Perfect." Marcus kissed my cheek. "I've been looking at properties in Costa Rica. Just dreaming, you know." Smiled. Dreaming is good. I was dreaming too. Dreaming of watching his face fall when he realized he'd lost the game. 2 days later, the first transfer went through. A large sum moved from the estate account to my new private account. That night, Marcus was on his phone more than usual. He seemed tense. He thought I didn't notice. Anything wrong? I asked innocently. No. Just some weird activity on one of my investment apps. Probably nothing. He was lying. He had seen something. The long game was starting to crack. The next morning he couldn't wait anymore. Nia, I think we should call Mr. Walsh today. Get things moving. I don't like the feeling of all that money just sitting there. It should be working for us. Working for us? I asked, putting down my coffee. Well, yeah. For our future. Our life together. He reached for my hand. I let him take it. His skin felt cold. I agreed to a meeting with Mr. Walsh for the following Monday. Marcus was thrilled. The weekend felt like a countdown. He talked nonstop about plans. A new car, a vacation home, quitting his job in marketing. Played my part. He nodded. Smiled. I said, "That sounds amazing." Inside I was a stone. On Sunday night, Marcus's friend Leo came over. I had never liked him. He had a slippery smile. They went into the backyard to talk, but I stood by the kitchen window, which was cracked open. "She's being slow about it, man," Marcus said, his voice low. "You gotta push harder." "What if she gets suspicious?" Leo replied. "She's not suspicious. She's grieving. She's trusting. I just need to guide her a little more. After Monday, when we see the lawyer and I get a look at the full numbers, I'll start steering the ship." I closed the window softly. They were so confident. They had no idea the ship had already sailed, and they weren't on it. Monday morning arrived. Marcus wore his best suit. He looked like he was going to a celebration. I wore a simple black dress. I looked like I was going to a funeral. In a way, I was. We drove to Mr. Walsh's office in silence. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. In the conference room, Mr. Walsh was all business. "Good morning, Nia, Marcus. Let's begin." Marcus jumped in immediately. "So, let's talk totals. What are we looking at here? Net worth, liquid assets, the whole picture." Mr. Walsh looked at me. He nodded. "Marcus," I said quietly, "before we talk about totals, there's something you should see." I slid my phone across the table. On the screen were the photos of his text messages with Leo. He looked down. His face went from confused to shocked to pale. He saw his own words. Asterisk, play the long game. A sure thing. Cash in. Asterisk. The room was dead silent. Marcus looked from the phone to me, to Mr. Walsh. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "These," I said, my voice clear in the quiet room, "show that you married me for a financial payout. You waited for my grandmother to die. This was never about love." "Nia, baby, this is," he stammered. "This is taken out of context. Leo is always joking around. You know that." "It doesn't look like a joke," Mr. Walsh said sternly, holding up a printed copy of the message where Marcus called me soft and said marrying me was the safest bet. Marcus stood up, his chair scraping loudly. "This is a setup. You're trying to cut me out." "There's nothing to cut you out of," I said, standing to face him. "My grandmother's inheritance is now securely in my name, in accounts you cannot access. And I have a new will. If anything happens to me, every cent goes to charity. You get nothing." The rage that crossed his face was terrifying. It was the real Marcus, finally uncovered. The charming mask was completely gone. "You bitch," he yelled. "After everything I did for you. I gave you a year of my life. You gave me a performance," I shot back. "And the show is over." Mr. Walsh pressed a button on his desk. "Security, please come to the main conference room." Marcus pointed a shaking finger at me. "You'll regret this. I'll fight this in court. I'll take half of everything. That's the law." "Actually," Mr. Walsh said calmly as 2 security guards entered the room, The prenuptial agreement is strong, and these messages demonstrate fraud and bad faith. A judge will not look kindly on that. My advice, Mr. Johnson, is to leave quietly. We will be filing for an annulment on the grounds of fraud. If you contest it, these messages will become public record. Marcus was escorted out of the building. I watched from the window as he stood on the sidewalk, screaming into his phone, probably at Leo. The perfect plan had blown up in his face. I sat down, my legs weak. The adrenaline was fading. Mr. Walsh poured me a glass of water. You were very brave, Nia. And very smart. He has no legal ground to stand on. What happens now? Yes. Now we file the annulment papers. He will be served. With the evidence we have, I doubt he will fight it. Fighting would expose his scheme to everyone he knows. I went home to my grandmother's house. I had already decided to move back in. Our marital apartment held nothing for me now. The annulment papers were delivered to Marcus 2 days later. He called me 100 times. He left screaming voicemails, then pleading ones, then threatening ones. I saved them all and sent them to Mr. Walsh. I changed my number. True to Mr. Walsh's prediction, Marcus did not fight the annulment. His lawyer quietly agreed to the terms. He would walk away with nothing. Signing those papers was the last piece of his long game. He just wanted to disappear. 2 weeks after the meeting in Mr. Walsh's office, it was official. My marriage was erased, as if it never happened. Because in the ways that mattered, it never had. With the legal battle over, I focused on my grandmother's legacy. I decided not to sell the flower shop. I hired her longtime assistant, Mrs. Clark, to help me run it. We expanded the business to include gardening classes for kids, just like my grandmother used to teach me. I used a portion of the money to fully fund the charities named in my will. I saw the scholarship awarded to a young mother named Keisha who wanted to be a nurse. I saw the community garden bloom. That felt better than any vacation or boat ever could. One afternoon, I was at the shop when a familiar slimy voice said, "Well, look who's a successful businesswoman." Turned. 'Twas Leo. He looked smug. "Marcus is ruined, you know. Lost his job. Friends dropped him. You destroyed him." I didn't feel afraid. Felt powerful. "I didn't destroy him," I said, arranging a bouquet. "He did that himself the moment he decided to use people. You help. Are you here for a job? We're hiring for cleanup. You seem to like dealing with garbage." His smirk vanished. He hadn't expected that. He thought I'd be scared or guilty. "You'll get yours," he muttered and left the shop. Mrs. Clark came over. "Everything all right, Nia?" "Better than all right," I said, smiling. "Everything is finally real." A year later, my life was completely different. The flower shop was thriving. I lived in my grandmother's house, filled with happy memories, not lies. I was taking business classes at night. I was healing. My friends threw me a freedom anniversary party. They knew the whole story and celebrated my escape. "To Nia," my best friend Tara said, raising a glass. "Who turned a plot against her into a plot for her future." I laughed. It was true. I had taken the worst betrayal and used it to build a life my grandmother would be proud of. One sunny afternoon, I was working in the backyard garden. My phone buzzed with a news alert. I rarely thought of Marcus anymore, but the article was about financial scams. There was a small mention. A man named Marcus Johnson had been arrested for attempting to defraud an elderly woman he'd met online. Pattern was the same. He hadn't learned. He just moved on to a new target, but this time he got caught. I felt a flicker of pity, but only a flicker. Then I let it go. I looked around at my garden, my home, my business. I felt the sun on my skin and the deep, solid peace in my heart. He married me for an inheritance. So I changed my will. And in doing so, I changed my whole life. I got my future back. And that was the greatest inheritance of all.